26 minutes. Inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So inshallah ta'ala, until we pray Isha, inshallah, we're going to try to cover what the Khimar is. What is the Khimar Islamically? In the note, sisters, a note came to the back asking, could the sisters quiet down some for the other sisters trying to benefit? I'm not sure what's going on, but yeah. Somebody sent a request back for the sisters to quiet down some. Jade. We're going to hold the questions, inshallah. We hold these questions, inshallah. We're not going to leave, we hold them. Tayyib. When it comes to the Khimar, what we want to understand first is that the Khimar is not based on what we understand to be individually. But Islam has already designated what is the Khimar and what is the Khimar for. The Khimar, or the Tarha they call it now. The Tarha, Khimar, Shayla, whatever you call it, the headscarf. We'll get to the questions. If y'all send the questions up, we just hold them here, and you can keep sending them, inshallah. So first we're going to look at, and if anybody wants to go back, this is in Surah An-Nur. Surah An-Nur. Ayat number 31. Surah An-Nur, Ayat 31. Allah says in this ayat, قال الله جل وعلا وَلْيَضْرِبْنَ بِخُمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ. Allah said, I need to bring the translation with me. Allah said, and to drape or cover with their khumur, ala juyub. And there's two words in here we want to look at specifically. Allah used the plural of khimar. The khimar, of course, is the headscarf, but the plural of khimar is khumur. Somebody find that real quick. Nur 31. It's like in the middle of it. I left the book in there. The plural of khimar is khumur. Khumur. And Allah said to put the khumur on top of the jade. Allah said juyub. And we're going to go through exactly what is the khimar, number one, and what is the jade, number two. That they both come in the same ayat. In Surah An-Nur, ayat number 31. And it's important, sisters, to make sure that your khimar, or tarha, or whatever, shayla, that your khimar fits the description that it's supposed to fit. You found it? And draw their veils over, and it's in the middle of the eye, and to draw their veils over juyubihinna, over the juyub. That the veil is supposed to be over the juyub. Everybody clear? And we're going to see what the jade is, the juyub. So the khimar is supposed to be, as Allah said in the ayat, to come over the jade, And we know the khimar is famously known as the scarf that you wrap the head with. The jade is, as the ulama explained, to put it simple, the entrance to the shirt, right? Where you put your head through. That's the jade. So the opening that you put your head through and whatever garment you put on is considered the jade. Clear? Not the sleeves, where the head goes. This is the jade. Tayyib? Everybody with me? Clear? Tayyib. So the khimar is supposed to be where? It's supposed to cover the jade. Clear? I don't want to go too fast. So now in the ayat, Allah said that their veils should come over the jade. That's the ayat alone. If you look in the tafsir of the ayat, the explanation of the ayat, which is important, if we don't know what tafsir is or the importance of tafsir, it's important. The same way we have a bunch of other books in our houses, we should have at least some tafsir of the Quran. What does that ayat mean? And understand, if you're reading the Quran, a lot of times people get confused that what is between the parentheses, at least in the Noble Quran, what is in between the parentheses is the tafsir, it's an explanation of the verse. What's in between the parentheses all throughout the Noble Quran is an explanation of the verse. A lot of times it's tafsir. It's not the direct translation of that verse, but it's the explanation of the translation along with it. So, in the tafsir, if you look at Qurtubi, Tafsir al-Qurtubi, which is an old tafsir, very famous. He explains, Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah explained the reason for the ayah being revealed. And he said, إن سبب النزول هذه الآية أن النساء كن في ذلك الزمان إذا غطين رؤوسهن بالأخمرة سدلناها من وراء ظهر. The ayah was revealed, and this, sisters, I hope y'all listening, because we gotta remember that hijab covering is worship. And we want to make sure that all of our worship is based on revelation, not based on what people do. Not based on what's famous, not based on the latest trend. We don't base our worship, we're not trendy. Tayyib. The ayah was revealed, and it says, during that time, the women, when they covered their heads, they would let the scarf hang down to the back. Before this ayah was revealed, the scarf would hang, whatever they had on the head, it would hang down in the back. Is this familiar? That the scarf is on the head and it's hanging down to the back, right? As if you had on well, not a Shayla, the old style Khimar, like the 90s Khimar, the safety pin. If you had the old Khimar from the 90s and you didn't safety pin it and you didn't have the cobra, you had it draped in the back, right? Before this ayah was revealed, that's how they used to wear them. So, if that's the case, as he says, فَيَبْقَى النَّهْرُ وَالْعُنُقُ وَالْأُذُنَانِ لَا سِتْرَ عَلَى ذَلِكَ. So if it's worn like that, then that means that the chest is not covered. The chest is not covered. The chest wasn't covered when? Before the ayat was revealed. The ayat was revealed. What's the reason for the ayat being revealed? Because the way that the women were wearing the headscarf at that time was incorrect. And Allah revealed the ayat and corrected it. So the way they were wearing it, the chest was still exposed. When we say exposed, not meaning skin. Of course you have to cover with regular clothes. We're talking about on top of the regular clothing. That the chest would still be exposed, the neck was still exposed, the ears were still exposed. Because it was worn like that. He says, فَأَمَرَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى بِلَيِّ الْخِمَارِ عَلَى الْجُيُوبِ. So Allah commanded that the khimar is supposed to be draped over what is called the jade, that part of the garment which will cover up the chest, the neck, the ears, and everything else. Clear? The khimar is supposed to cover. Sisters, meaning, if it's not clear, meaning to put on a headscarf, to put a headscarf on, and then tie it around your neck. Tie it around the neck here, right? Where it doesn't leave enough material to drape and cover the chest and the neck and the rest of the things is incorrect. The point of the khimar is a covering. Hijab is supposed to cover something. Clear? So he says after that, that the sahabiyat, the female companions of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, which is recorded by Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, the Aisha radiallahu anha, قالت يرحم الله نساء المهاجرات الأول. And this narration shows that we should rush in the example that we've been left by the best of the Ummah, the Sahaba, the best of the Ummah. The example is in the narration. The females during that time, Aisha said, may Allah have mercy on the females from the Muhajirat, from those who made the migration. Lamma anzal Allah, when Allah revealed this ayat and drape your veils over your juyub, she said, shaqaqna murutahunna fakhtamarna biha. What they did was immediately, whatever garments they had, they tore them and they started to wear it correctly. They tore what they had to make it longer, to make it fit, to make it cover what it was supposed to cover. When before the ayat was revealed, what was exposed? The neck and what else? The ears and what else? The breasts. Before the ayat was revealed. After the ayat was revealed, the female Sahaba, they understood that all of that's supposed to be covered. So what did they do? They took the garments they had, they tore them to make it fit so that they could cover those areas. Clear? Rushing to be correctly, or rushing to make sure that what they're doing is correct according to the revelation. So looking at the Khimar, number one, that we can't be people who blow with the wind. We change and we flip-flop based on the trend that's new. If the trend goes against the Quran and the Sunnah, we don't follow the trend. If the trend goes against the revelation, we shouldn't follow the trend. Clear? No matter what you call the scarf. If it's a shayla, you got to get the big shayla, the 2.5 meter or 3 or whatever it is. So to make sure that when you're styling it and all of that, that you're still in the realms and you're still following the conditions set by Allah and His Messenger, alayhi salatu. Not that because this is the new how to style, this is the new thing, I'm going to leave off the way it's really supposed to be, because everybody's wearing it like that. This is normal. Because something is normal doesn't make it right. Because something is a norm, it doesn't make it correct. We have a lot of things that are normal with us that are dead wrong. It's totally wrong. Islamically, it's incorrect. 100%. But it's become a norm with the Muslims and with the non-Muslims. And some of those norms are from the major sins. Some of the norms that we have now is normal. Everybody's doing it. Alright, as they said. Everybody's doing it. But if you really look into the Sharia and you find that, you'll find that that thing that everybody's doing is from the major sins. That Allah cursed the people who do that. And at the same time, that thing is a norm. So because it's a norm, and this is the new thing, this is the new wave, or everybody's doing it like this, it doesn't mean it's right by any means. So that's what's understood by the Khimar, that it's not a head, the headscarf is supposed to cover a certain portion. It's supposed to cover a certain portion of the body. And it's important to remember that before the ayat was revealed, and that's Surah An-Nur, ayat 31. And that comes in what's called Asbab al-Nuzul. And you get that from reading tafsir. If we don't know, Ibn Kathir is from one of the famous books of tafsir. Imam Sa'di has a short tafsir. There's a lot of books of tafsir. But the scholars discuss what was going on during that point in time when Allah revealed that ayat. And during that time, the way that the women were wearing the headscarf is as it was explained. Which means that when Allah revealed that ayat, it's supposed to be corrected after that. It's supposed to be corrected. طيب. Allah says in another ayat, and this ayat in Surah Al-Ahzab. Surah Al-Ahzab, ayat 59. Surah Al-Ahzab, ayat 59, where Allah discusses the Jilbaab. Most people don't use that term, Jilbaab. What term do we use, y'all? Huh? Can you find it? What's a Jilbaab, anybody? overgarment. We gotta know the words that we use. Nobody talks like that. Jilbaab, ahzab, number 59, al-ahzab 59. Jalabib, the plural. But we say overgarment, right? Or some might now abaya, whatever you want to call it. طيب. Allah discussed the jilbab. طيب. Allah says, Ya ayyuhan nabi, O Prophet, قُلْ لِأَزْوَاجِكَ, say to your wives, وَبَنَاتِكَ, and to your daughters, وَنِسَاءِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and say to the believing women, يُدْنِينَ عَلَيْهِنَّ مِنْ جَلَابِبِهِنَّ. طيب. This John's super small. Tell your wives and your daughters and the women of the believers to draw their cloaks, and it says veils and parentheses, all over their bodies. And then there's parentheses after that. The parentheses after that is a description, it's a tafsir. That's not the actual ayah, what's in parentheses, but that's the tafsir after that, where it says, screen themselves. طيب. So in this ayah, Allah uses the word jalabib, which is the plural of jilbab, which is an overgarment, as we said. Let's just use overgarment so we can be clear. طيب. Now the scholars have explained and defined in all of the definitions of clothes, what is an overgarment? طيب. I'm not asking y'all, I'm just saying the scholars discuss and give a definition of what an overgarment is and what an overgarment is for. طيب. One definition says, هو الرداء الذي يستر البدن من فوق إلى الأسفل. It is a garment that is used to cover the body from the top to the bottom. And this is the statement of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. A garment used to cover the body from top to bottom. طيب. Another definition says, what a woman uses min kisa'in aw ghayrihi. What a woman uses to cover herself from different garments. Another definition says thawbun wasi', awsa' min khimar. It's a garment that is wider than what a khimar would be. All of this shows the overgarment is not supposed to be tight. There's no way. There's no way, sis, you look in the mirror and you yourself see your shape and you consider that correct. Impossible. Islamically, la. What we do was normal to us here, maybe. What's normal to people, but again, normal doesn't mean it's correct. Because that's the norm, that's what's popular, don't mean it's right. Because more than likely, the one that did it, she don't know. More than likely. So, it's supposed to be wide. It's not supposed to show the form, except what you cannot control. We are human. We're human. Right? Male, female. Women have breasts. So it's not like you can remove that from a person's figure. But we're talking about explicitly a tight garment, right, that shows clearly a woman's figure, that that's not the proper usage of the garment, the jilbab. And nobody, no definition will you find Islamically that supports that. Anything under hijab is supposed to cover. Hijab is supposed to be a covering. طيب, another definition says al-mala'a, a wrap التي تشتمل بها المرأة فوق القميص والخمار. Another wrap or another veil that a woman would use to put over top of her khimar and her shirt, her regular clothing. Now, in order to get something over top of your regular clothing and your khimar, and if we get into the description of the conditions for the jilbab, that one of them is that it's not tight. That it's not tight. So the ayah which is in Surah Al-Ahzab, this ayah in Surah Al-Ahzab where Allah says, and draw their cloaks, yudnina alayhinna min jalabibihinna. In this ayah, it is understood that the body is supposed to be covered. If we say covered, of course we're not talking about that a person doesn't come outside without any clothes on. That's not the point. We're talking about covered or on top of the clothes that you already have. And how does a person cover yourself on top of clothes you already have? It's not a trick question. Huh? Yeah, but does it make sense to put on something that's just as tight as what you already have on under it? There's no benefit. If what you put on top of it is as tight as what you have on under it, then there's no benefit to putting anything on top of it. Right? And no definitions, you're not going to find no definitions Islamically that support the tight jilbaab. And there's plenty of definitions. I just read off a couple of them. There's plenty. The point is to cover. The point of the jilbaab, the overgarment, is for covering. That all the men are not supposed to see what your husband sees. All the men shouldn't know what another man goes in the house with. If that's clear enough. I don't want to get too... Everybody shouldn't know, what the next man is going in the house with. In the jilbaab, the overgarment, is a protection from that. And on top of that, sisters, on top of that, if you ask, well, you don't have to ask, but if you ask any of your male family members, they can be Muslim or non-Muslim. Muslim or non-Muslim. Even a non-Muslim man with sense, the one who's aql, he respects the one who doesn't show herself. The one that everybody can't see, he respects that. Even the non-Muslim. Because sometimes sisters think it's just, extreme Muslims because you wanted to cover properly, so she might consider you extreme. Right? You overboard, right? But if you talk to a non-Muslim man, he'll tell you, man. And I say that you don't have to take it from me. Ask any man. Men have what we call, if you don't know, brothers, we have wifey material and what? Either she's not wifey material. So, right? Am I lying? Am I letting too much out of the bag? It is what it is. Sisters, if you don't know, there's some things, not just for the Muslims, the non-Muslim man will tell you the same thing. The non-Muslim man will tell you they prefer, no, that's too much, Not for a wife. For a wife, no. Not for a wife. And we talking about our women being wives, so we talking about a wife, a man with a wife, a man wants something that is, no man with a sound mind wants everybody knowing what his wife looks like and how she's built. In the khimar, in the overgarment, it's supposed to stop that. It's supposed to be, of course you can't stop it 100%. We're not going to that extreme where you can't stop it 100%. But it's supposed to cut down on the fitna. It's supposed to cut down on it. Now we're not getting into, does it have to be this color? The man don't specify color. And when we asked, we tried to do that. Sheikh, well, we need the conditions. What about the hijab? Does it have to be black? Does it have to be this? Sheikh said, listen, I feel Allah. Sheikh Abdul Majid and Subayr, I feel Allah. Because we would sometimes we try to box, not like that, but we want to hear what we want to hear from the Sheikh. I want to hear the way I think it should sound. So you ask the Sheikh all these questions. Sheikh said, listen, these are the conditions for the Islamic hijab. The Islamic covering has to be like this. If it falls into this, then it fits. The color could vary from place to place. But it shouldn't be see-through. No matter where you go in the world, you shouldn't be see-through. So now what happens when a sister in a new overgarment got a see-through sleeves on it, for example? Right? See-through sleeves. Right? Or it's tight. It shouldn't be tight. It should be spacious. It should be wide enough, right, that the figure is not showing like that. Right? That all of those things have to be taken into consideration in order for it to be Islamically correct. In order for you to be Islamically correct. And it's important to make sure that we try to make everything that we do pleasing to Allah Jalla wa'ala. Because at the end of the day, Allah commanded the women to cover themselves. And therefore, when the sisters cover like that, brothers, that's a sign of Iman, and it's a sign that they should be honored and respected. Because we slick, right? Women can't hide walking outside with a scarf on. And if they cover with an overcoat, they can't hide that when they go places. But we go places we love, right? No kufi, no nothing. We low, no oil on. We just put on cologne for the day. You know what I'm saying? We all the way low. Nobody knows. No Muslims out there. Nobody said, but our women can't do that. Right? That's respect. It takes a lot. It's a lot of criticism coming with that. That's a lot of criticism. That's a lot to take. And then we go outside and people don't know. You see Muslims, they don't even know we Muslims, some of us. Do you have, I'm not saying you gotta wear your stand, no. What I'm saying is we have to respect the station of our women. That they don't have no hide button. There is no hide button they can push. When they go out from obedience, is that they cover their head, they cover what Allah told them to cover. Tayyib. So it's worship. It's worship for the women. Allah commanded them to cover. So the question is, how do we know it's worship? And not just something that the Muslim woman should do. This is a question now. How do we know that covering is worship, like salah is worship, like fasting Ramadan is worship, like giving sadaqah is worship, smiling at your brother is worship, sadaqah? How do we know that covering is worship? How do we know that?
Because it's something that was commanded to do.
Because it's something that was commanded to do. No, tayyib again. No salat for the one who has a menses except that she has a khimar on. Tayyib, but how does that make it worship? You said a command, you said a hadith. What makes it worship? It's a command. Tayyib, if it's a command. So every time, if we say that, if we say it's a command, so if we say it's a command, if a woman doesn't do a command, that means it's a punishment connected to it. It's not accurate. That's not accurate. Every command that comes doesn't have punishment connected to it. Sorry, shit. Oh, now you don't know. Huh? How do we know covering is worship? It's a command, no doubt. But everybody needs to understand, what does that mean? Let's go back a step. How do we know something is worship? What is worship anyway?
Worship is anything that's pleasing to Allah.
Jay, anything pleasing to Allah. A little more. No. Worship. How do we know what's worship? Yes. Yeah, but what is worship? What is worship? That just tells me that says my worship is for Allah. But what's worship? La, not you, Sheikh. Sheikh, I'm not calling, no. Huh? Sayings and actions. That's it? Everything we say is worship?
It's love and pleasing to Allah, right?
Everything that is loved by Allah, again? Sayings and actions that are loved by Allah and pleasing to Allah. Jayyid. Sayings and actions that are loved by Allah and pleasing to Allah. Okay.
You gotta have a niyyah to be pleasing, but it's your intention.
The intention has to be connected to the worship. But what is worship? He says every action and statement that is loved by Allah. But in order for you to be correct, you have to have a niyyah. But every niyyah don't mean it's worship.
No.
He's closer. What you saying?
I'm saying what he's saying, but with the intention.
With the intention.
Right.
Jayyid.
With the intention to be pleasing to Allah.
Tayyib. Further. No, because then I got to answer. No. Every action or statement that is pleasing to Allah. Clear? Every action, statement pleasing to Allah. Al-ibadah. What? Yeah. Whether that action or statement can be seen by people or it can't be seen by people. Worship is everything that is pleasing to Allah, whether it's something we say, like Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, whether it's something we do, like praying or fasting Ramadan, whether it's something you can see, people can see you doing it, like what? Making Hajj or praying. Or what if people can't see you doing it? It still could be a form of worship, like what? Huh? Fasting. Huh? Dhikr, sabr. Huh?
Go to sleep, go to sleep early so you can wake up on Fajr.
I was really going for something from the heart. You know what I'm saying? A'mal al-qulub. Ikhlas, being sincere. Nobody can see your heart being sincere, but that's considered worship. Nobody can see if you're sincere when you give sadaqah on Friday or whatever day you give it. Right? Only Allah knows. Nobody really knows you're fasting unless you tell them you're fasting. So whether a person can see it or not see it, it's still considered worship. Tayyib? Now, how do we know that covering is worship? Based on that definition. It's an action that is pleasing to Allah. How do we know that it's an action that action is pleasing to Allah? Because He commanded us to do it. Allah would not command you to do something that's going to be displeasing to Him. He's not going to command you to be disobedient to Him. He's going to command you to do things that are pleasing to Him. Clear? Clear? So the fact that it's a command, what does that mean? Allah commanded us to do it. And what does that mean? Allah's not going to command me to do something that's going to gain His anger. He's going to command me to do something that's going to gain His pleasure. Clear? So the fact that Allah commanded the sisters, the Muslim woman, to cover in the Quran shows that this is something that is pleasing to Allah. It's an action that is pleasing to Allah. Therefore, covering is also worship. It's not just something Muslim women just do just for, if you find good, decent garments, you cover up. But since I'm out here where I live at, they don't really have no nice garments, so I'm going to just wear regular clothes, as we say. It's not like that.
That's why I specified with the niyyah, because you could wear overgarments, but if you're just doing it for your husband, or you're doing it because of the fashion statement, then it's not pleasing to Allah.
Right, that's the next step.
You have to have a niyyah.
After knowing what the worship is, all worship needs an intention. But we need to understand that it is worship, number one, so that we can make the intention to please Allah. That, sisters, I'm not saying you shouldn't. But when you do things only for your husband, if Allah tests you with divorce, guess what? Everything goes when He goes. That's the mushkila, that's the problem. That none of our worship is for any person from the creation. Our worship is for Allah. So if Allah tests us with something tests a person with divorce, that your deen doesn't go when the other half of you goes. But if you're doing everything because He said do it in your heart, even though He might explain everything, He's doing His best to explain as much as He can. That we have to know that it's ibadah, it's worship. It's not just, I got to listen to my husband. Not just that. At the end of the day, if your husband's telling you something good, he's telling you something that's going to get you closer to Allah. He's telling you something that's going to get you the reward from Allah. This is something good. It will be the same thing as if one of your friends came and told you something that was beneficial. Because it's your husband, it's a problem. Or vice versa, brothers, because we got a problem, even though this talk ain't about that, but we got problems covering ourselves nowadays. Allahumma musta'an. Allahumma musta'an. We're not going into that today. But we have problems, some of us have problems covering our own selves, the men. So when she comes and tells you, Akhi, how you going to pray like that? We can't use the same excuse that we saying our sisters can't use. We can't use the latest trend. We can't use the latest trend and the latest fashion statements of people, for real, the people who set the trends are not people who are gaining Allah's pleasure anyway. They're not people who we would be considered to be, we would consider to be role models anyway. But they are setting the trends and they're making their mark. I think we'll stop there, inshallah. I went over. Unless there are any questions, inshallah. If there are no questions, all these questions. I'm not getting questions. Should we say these? Save these? Let me see the phone y'all use. Sorry. What's your opinion on the overgarment dragging the ground, then entering the home or masjid for prayer? The ground is filthy, dirty, and the overgarment collects so much of it. We'll save that. Yalla. Assalamu alaikum. Where are some classes that deal with women's affairs, hijab, femininity, women? P.S. Some of these types of affairs may be taken better to talk about another woman. Agreed. I agree. Sisters gotta be willing to, not just the sisters, the men and the women. At some point, you gotta break out of the shell. At some point, sisters, somebody has to teach the sisters. Somebody. She said that if some of these affairs, some of these issues are better coming from another woman. I agree. But which woman's gonna stand up and take over? Be responsible to do it. And we was talking about that the other day in the adhan class. Brothers, sometimes somebody gotta call the adhan. When it's time to call the adhan, everybody looking around. You got it. Passing up like. The sisters ain't gonna come call the adhan. They're not coming to lead the salah. At some point, somebody has to stand up and take over. Sister, I don't know the answer to this question. I agree. Who's going to teach it? I don't know. Oh, this must be for Hanif. Hanif left. Inshallah, we'll deal with the question now. What is the ruling on showing the feet? For example, wearing sandals in public. What is the difference between a woman's required dress during salah when going outside? When working outside of the home in a medical profession, attending meetings and working amongst my colleagues, how do I deal with wearing a niqab since this is not an Islamic country? Do you remove when in your work sitting? It depends, sister. What do you see the niqab? I won't answer. We'll save these, inshallah. We'll save these questions for Mufti, inshallah. I'm sorry. Jazakumullah khairan. Jazakumullah khairan. Any other questions? I'll stop there and save it for Mufti, inshallah. But we could pray, inshallah. We'll stop there, and then Mufti's going to continue after the salah. Inshallah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.
Call the camera. Said he's not here, so I have to call the camera. Alright.